So as promised, we're going to jump right into your thinking work around the 5 whys. So here is what I was talking you through verbally that now you can see if you weren't able to access your Padlet earlier. So your goal right now is to pick an issue. Pick one of the things you're trying to address in your setting. Ask, why does that thing happen? Why is this thing happening? Write that answer. Then why does that thing happen? Write that answer. And why does that thing happen? Answer. And keep going until you find yourself at a space where you think you've gotten to the lowest level action that you can respond to. As we talked about, it might not be the ultimate reason why something is happening. That might be the root cause, but there's a difference between actionable root causes and root causes in general. Do we focus on the countermeasures right now? Nope, we're going to come back to them. Our jobs right now are to ask and answer all the whys. So I'm going to leave you to it for 10 minutes, and then we're going to do some check-ins, and then I'll give you the next set of directions. So if you're on your Padlet, there's a template you can feel free to use. You can take your own notes. You can draw it on sketch paper, whatever you prefer. But if you're in the Padlet, it's going to be this document that says 5 whys template. Again, you'll be focusing on the first 2 columns. All right? Have at it. I'll set the timer for 10 minutes. All right, let's do a check-in. Let's do a check-in in 3, in 2, now 1. Okay, so I'm going to give you some more time, but I do want us to talk together about things we're noticing. What are you noticing about the process as you try to ask these why questions and coming up with potential answers? What do you notice? What did you notice as you practiced?
We had a lot of slashes, which made a lot. Like this / this, it could be this, this, or this, and then we're like, uh-oh.
What if you have multiple answers? Ding, ding, ding. When you have multiple answers, first of all, you should know that that's a good thing. That means you are seeing the whole picture, more of the picture, right? And as you have more voices, you absolutely will have more slashes. I call them more bullets. But that's just an opportunity for you to do another round of whys. So take one of the bullets, complete the template, the protocol, then go back to the next bullet, complete the protocol. It just gives you more opportunity to explore what are actionable things you can do. Because we all know you have a lot of actions already on your charts. There's going to be more than one action. So when you're able to identify more possibilities in terms of answers, it's just giving you more opportunities to find the just right actions. So that's a good thing. What else did you notice? Other things you noticed trying to work through the whys? Anybody notice? I had a couple conversations with some teams about things you can control. Talk about that. What if you were getting down to things that you couldn't control? As an example, let me go to this that you couldn't see earlier. But what if I said, the ELA, why aren't students provided time to practice skills? And I said the ELA curricula and maps focus more on fluency, vocab, and comprehension. What if I said, because the state tells us this is what we need to teach in 3rd grade? Yeah, how do you, not what I said could be true, but how do I take and be mindful of something that could be true in general, I'm speaking some truth to that. These are the expectations of things we teach at that level, which may be dictated by IDOE. But even if that's the case, how do I turn that answer into something I can still influence? So whenever you feel yourself thinking about or coming up with answers that take away your ability to act on something, stay there and say, how do I reframe this answer in a way that allows us to have some control over it? All right? So the takeaway from this, I want you to get to a place where you find yourself at a root why and a root answer. Some of you need a couple more iterations to do that. You might need to explore one more bullet. Once you feel like you are at this spot, I want you to now go back to all of your answers and identify countermeasures. What can you do to intervene on that thing? So let's walk through it here. If I say students lack fundamental skills in phonics, which impacts their reading comprehension ability, we kind of talked through this before lunch. What can you do? What's a possibility? You can front load phonics before you teach. Students don't have sufficient amount of practice time needed to build their phonics skills. What could you do? This is a time issue, so what could you do? You can adjust time. You could be creative in terms of your stations that add a time component to practicing that skill. Let's jump down here. How would you address this assumption that phonemic awareness and phonics skills are secured in K through 2? And so they're only focusing on those skills in those grades. What could you do around there? Ding, 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 ding. I'm so proud. Yes. So if that's an assumption, how do I either validate that or debunk it? It's not like we don't have all the things. We do. Tools are us. Remember, we know how. And even if as a third grade teacher, I'm not an expert on that, there are people around that can help me. I'm worried about my students' reading comprehension. I really have a hunch it's because they don't have some lower level skills. Do you have just a quick assessment? They're going to say, absolutely, I do. So you check it out. That's what you could do. And then we talked here about what could we do if we didn't use data. We went through that example. You can ensure the right people. First of all, name them. Who should have been there that wasn't? Who was there? Who was there? Who should have been there? What data would have been meaningful? So that's your task, 2 tasks. Complete your why. You might need to try again with another bullet. Get to where you think you've gotten to the root why that you can take action on. When you've done that, then go back through identifying countermeasures. We clear? All right. So I think another 10 minutes is what you'll need for this. So I had some great discussions with you all. 5 whys is pretty powerful. It looks nice and easy, but it's hard. It is really hard, and you really start to uncover some stuff that's like, ooh, well, how do we even address that? And so hopefully what you're finding is that there's like parallel things that you can do, maybe more than that, right? You're addressing many of the potential answers, but also there might be some whys and some answers that are more at a systemic level, district-wide, and more actionable at a classroom level. Separate those things because it's both and. You need to do both. There might be some change that needs to happen at a district level while also right now focusing on what needs to happen in the classroom to impact your outcomes as a student. Usually I have a little graphic. Imagine with me for a moment a graphic of a little small boat, like one that you have to use the rows, a rowboat, and there's a person in there, and there's a hole in the boat. What happens when there's a hole in the boat? It's going to sink, water's filling the boat, right? And so now that one person is trying to bail water out of the boat, right? That's the fix it. I don't want to drown, I don't want to sink, let me get this water out of the boat. That's kind of the classroom actions. Let's make sure we're doing what we can to respond to kids' needs, right? And in a certain way, yeah, that keeps you from sinking. It keeps your scores from going lower. It supports students in having more success, but it is a Band-Aid if you don't do what? Fix the hole. Identify why the hole happened. That's the systemic part. So you need both. And I hope you discovered both when you were doing some of your whys. If you didn't, when you're back in your district, this is the work. This is the work that you do to try to figure out both avenues. So as we wrap up this conversation, I have one more task for you. I want you to think about the countermeasures that you wrote down. Think about the countermeasures that you wrote down. And now I want you to either think about or go and find where those countermeasures are on your chart. If you have what you wrote on your chart somewhere near you, you can just look there. Otherwise, take a walk to your chart and see where you find those countermeasures. What we want to see is if through this process we discovered something that we didn't have articulated there. And if we find it there, did we dig deep enough? Because there should be some new things that we discovered through this process. So what's the same? And if it's the same, is it because we were already down to this level? That could certainly be. Might we have an opportunity to think deeper though? And did we just identify things that we didn't have on our charts? And if we have new things, why was that? Why did we miss them initially? So let's just take 5 minutes to find it and then think about those questions. I promise I'll stick to 5 minutes. I'll stay by my timer instead of letting it run. What's new? What's the same? And why to both of those questions? All right, let's come on back together. And I'm really interested in some feedback from you all. So push yourselves to share what you discovered. So what did you notice in terms of the connection on the countermeasures you just discovered and what was on your chart? You found a lot of agreement and alignment, or you noticed some new things being added? What did you discover? Anybody want to comment? I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking. Please share. What did you notice?
What I was noticing is it comes down to me making those changes. I can be part of that change and I need to make it happen. Instead of
Looking for others, hoping somebody else does it, or
I need to be more active. The things I'm asking of everybody else, I need to be doing as well.
yeah, modeling is a big one. I believe you're probably in this room because you're in some sort of leadership role, maybe not by title, but in terms of how people perceive you. And just know leaders always have to go first. There is never an exception. Leaders always have to go first. Yep. So that was perfect. Thank you. What else did you notice? Things that now you wonder. Maybe there's not an answer to the question Renee's asking, but here's what's on my mind. Just share that then.
I think when I think about it's like the barrier that is logistics of like getting it all organized and getting the time built into the contractual day or non-contractual day, if you can have the money to pay for that, and like getting the people lined up to help make some of those changes, whether it's
Yep.
outside consulting or inside talent.
Mm-hmm.
And just the time it takes to get the logistics to play out and everybody to show up and subs organized is a big lift. that
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to undertake.
Well, and even if you try, it seems like you might not always be successful. Angie and I have worked together for a long, long time, and we used to have this one colleague who used to say, time is a four-letter word in education. Like, it's a four-letter word. Like, you're never going to get enough of it. It's a bad word. Like, we just don't have it. That's probably also going to always be true. So you give yourself some grace there, right? You do what you can to get as many exposure to as many people as you can, and then you build protocols. Like even what we're doing today, it was some people that really wanted to be here and couldn't, right? So we have additional protocols. They can watch this video, and we have tools set up where they can really, if it's their desire, get what they need. The table is laid. Are you going to access what's there? So you're not going to ever have enough time to make sure the classified and the certified and everybody is in one spot. Rarely does that happen. Maybe on an opening day where you're wearing your colored shirts and everybody's together. But beside that, that doesn't even happen. So what else? And you know, again, as I say, be graceful. Like you don't expect was almost impossible. A great I wonder though, because we want to make sure we're connecting all the dots, is everyone needs access to the content if we really want to shift. What else is on your mind? Who else needs to hear what we're talking about today? That's on my mind. Yep.
So we talked about the importance of maybe circling back to things we visited 3 or 4 years ago, just because we have new teachers, the teacher training is different when they're coming from not the world of education.
Yep.
And then asking them what are your barriers, or professional development will look different to them than
Yep.
those that are from an education degree.
Yep.
And then we realized that our principals, we really might have one with a special ed background. And so starting with the principals understanding and buying in and what are their hurdles, how we can support them.
Yep.
Is really how we're going to get teachers held accountable, but really holding their hand educated,
Yeah.
supporting
Right.
in each of the different buildings.
Right, right. I was having a conversation with the Monroe County team up here, and we were saying, what if folks have a value for prioritizing academics over behavior, for example? And so we were trying to come up with the why for that. And there are many whys. But what if one why is because that's what my boss is looking at? They're looking at the academic outcome. So guess what? That's what I am going to focus on. So it's not necessarily get teachers to change their mind and know that behavior is important. Yes, and what are we being held accountable for? If there's also conversation about behavior as you give me feedback, leader, then I'm going to pay more attention to that. But you can't just expect me to shift my priorities around academics if that is what the feedback is. Remember I said you will know what you value by looking at what you do. If you give teachers feedback on their academic outcomes consistently, and you never do that behavior, you do not value changing behavior outcomes. You can't, because your behavior isn't showing it. You might think you want to, but if that is a value or core value you want to live by, then you have to do something. to show that. So then that would mean a shift in how you have conversations also about behavior. Spot on, I love it. Like, first of all, what's our training model? What do teachers need to know? And then what about our leaders that may not have all the information they need as well? Great. Anything else?
To kind of piggyback on that, though, I feel like if you're really making curriculum equitable to all students and you are engaging all students, that behavior should fall to the wayside because you're really teaching and addressing the academic needs of all students. Because a lot of behaviors are avoidance because they struggle.
Yeah, right. And that's an age-old connection. You know, when students don't feel connected, when they're bored or not, as you said, engaged in the academic side of things, behavior tends to peak, right? Creeps in because what's the alternative, right? And it could be many things. Am I avoiding the task and I'm just acting out because I'm bored, right? So if we knew the needs, if we better understood who our students are, what their needs were, and we had the skill set to really differentiate, we could probably be better at addressing all of our students, thereby increasing not only academics, but behavior as well. Yeah. A lot of times our conversations, we know that. Who hasn't heard that? All of us. We know that, but then we look at what our training looks like. It doesn't always then get down to what is the action I need to take to ensure teachers know their students well enough to differentiate so that they're engaged. Like if we ask those questions instead of how to reduce behavior, it might change some of the things that we do and talk about. So I wanted you to at least get some new ideas for your actions. Like that's really what my desire was. That's really all I wanted. Today I wanted you to be able to think more deeply about your actions because everyone had really great ones. But what I've discovered, and I didn't say this because I'm not big on like you can read the bio and stuff when you're signing up to learn about me, but so I don't really take time to do that. But one of the things I've learned over all the many years working with lots of districts is that you have beautifully written action plans. They're usually great. Like anybody picking that up would be like, that's a good one. That sounds like a good one. But my lenses have just got me to the point where I'm able to think about what's written there in a deeper way. And that's what I'm trying to transfer to you all. I want you not to focus on the words written, but really how are you going to execute what is written in a way that gets you different outcomes. Just to say, we're going to focus on increasing our attendance, and you have these actions, that's going to sound very good. But what's beyond there that you need to dig through in order for you to really be able to execute that and sustain it for the long period of time? So that's my desire. Hopefully the 5 whys started to illuminate some of that for you, and I'm hopeful that you'll carry it over with your teams back in the district. So I just have one last thinking task for you all, because you're probably about thinking tasked out. I understand, I do. But one thing that I hope will connect some of the dots from our whole day. So, as I foreshadowed this morning, I want us to think about 3 sets. Mindset. You can think about that using terms we've talked about already today, identity, right? But more than that, how do I have to think about this? What has to be my core values around all the things that we've talked about, you've talked about as a team? What's the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set needed? So I usually give a quick example before I start to dig through how this connects to your area of focus. So let me do that. Think about those 3 sets. I consider myself a person who desires to be independent. I like to think of myself, I have a core value of a person who values being an independent woman. Whatever I say I want to do, I want to be able to do it on my own. Because I can figure out, everything is figure outable. Right? That's a core value. That's my mindset. So let's suppose as I was getting ready to leave here today to go home, I go to my car and I discover I had a flat tire. Well, as the independent woman I am, I'd be like, let me change this tire. I don't care about this cute outfit. Let me change the tire. All of us right now have a tool in our vehicles that would help us change the tire. They come standard with your vehicle. I think it's called a jack, and it might be a wrench that goes with that too. I have the tool. I have the tools. But as you can already see, I don't have the skill set. I kind of surface level know what they're called. And that's it. Like, I know I'm supposed to move in the direction of the bad tire and something goes on something, but I really would not, it would be, I would just be taking a wild guess. I don't have the skill to change a tire. Even though I see myself as a person who can figure out everything and be able to do whatever I need to do without calling AAA or my husband or my son or my daughter, who also doesn't know how to change a tire, but I'm going to change that. No, I'm not. I'm not even going to lie to you. So you see the story I'm trying to paint for you. A lot of us believe we have a core value, and it might be true. We do desire a particular outcome. We do desire to behave in a certain way. And we have the things that will help us do it. We have all the knowledge. We have all the resources. Right? We know we know people that can help. But when it comes down to using the tools that we have, we don't have the skill set to be able to put them to use. So I started using these 3 sets with schools because honestly, I got tired of everyone talking about the tools. I'm like, we don't need any more tools. If we never had another person create another thing, we would be fine. We don't need anything else. People are like, well, no, we don't. We really, really don't. We don't. We don't. We really need to check, what do we want? What is our value? What do we want? But more than that, we need to make sure we're equipping folks with the skill to be able to use what we have. I think we missed the mark there. Let me show you what I mean. So when we talk about mindset, we're talking about getting to equity-focused outcomes, which means we have to also be intentional about thinking, are all students really benefiting? Or when we say we want improved outcomes, we're talking about improved outcomes for 90% of our students, but we already know the special ed students aren't going to make it. Is that really what we mean? Or do we really mean we want all students to benefit? I mean, you might not want to say out loud which it is, but which is it? Which is it? If you have a mindset of equity, you're thinking, I'm talking about narrowing the gaps for everybody, eliminating predictability for everybody. And so that means my beliefs and my actions are actively focused on interrupting all the policies, the structures, all the systemic things that are contributing to those inequities. And in that, on the slide in italics is the word active. If you have a mindset for equity-focused outcomes, meaning you really want to close gaps, you have to do. You can't be a person that says you have a value, but you're passive in it. Get that? And being anti-systemic inequalities, being against outcomes that impact particular kids. Anti doesn't mean non. It doesn't mean that you don't do something alone. Well, I don't have low expectations of special ed students. Well, I don't excessively judge students whose parents are transient and can't get them here every day. Well, I don't expect English language learners to only speak English. Things you're not doing. But what do you do? What are you doing? Are you supporting that parent who's transient to think about strategies that will help them get their student there? Are you holding special education students to high expectations just like everybody else? What are you doing? That's the active part of the mindset. And to be honest, that's a hard question for you to have some self-awareness around too. I love how we were saying some things are about me. Some things are about things I have to change. That might be true in this case. Like really thinking about what could you be more active around. I'm going to come back to skill set, tool set. Those are the evidence-based things you already have in your chart. All the things we've bought, all the programs, all the assessments, we've invested in this consulting company and this training program. Those are all the tools, your toolbox. Those evidence-based practices, methodology, systems, frameworks that you're building, that you use right now, that you are hoping will create better outcomes for your students. That's why you do them. That's why you purchase them. That's why you get trained on them. But it's the skill sets, which are the awareness and abilities to even know when there's something you need to interrupt. To even be aware that there are some students that these things are not benefiting equally. The skill set is my ability to know what tools to select and how to apply them for who my students are. And that might mean I use one tool for Renee and another for a different student. Back to really knowing who your students are. How are we teaching folks this skill set? Or are we just assuming, here's the tool, change the tire? Here's the tool, improve student outcomes. Here's the tool, eliminate all the office referrals, get control of your classroom management. Well, how do we know that they know how to do that? Truly. And you don't know that they know how to do that by doing a PD. That is not the way they develop the skill. That offers them awareness of something, but it doesn't build skill. We don't just catch it. If that were true, kids should be masters because we expose them to everything all day long. They still don't have all the skills they need. So skill set, mindset, tool set are now what I want you to turn your attention to in this last hour or so to really connect where we started, our current action plans, thinking of how those current action plans communicate who we are, what we do, and what we get. Think about the actionable root cause that you identified. If we do this, does everyone have the mindset in order to really do this long term? Not because I'm telling you, but because it's who we are. The skill set to be able to really understand how to do it And do we make sure that we have all of the clearly identified resources that will help them do that? So that said, making connections to that last activity you did, we're going to explore mindset, skill set, and tool set. So your very last Padlet document looks like this. I'm going to come back in a second. It looks like this. You're going to have an area of focus, and then you're going to have 3 columns for mindset, skill set, tool set. I'm going to be A-okay if you just do one area of focus. But your work is to address all the areas that you need to address in your spaces. That might not be today, but I want you to do your best to push through at least one so I can support you with that. So what do we mean by this? So when we talk about mindset, I have found this is again not an easy task, because I'm asking you to think about things that nobody just sits around and thinks about. But when I'm talking about mindset, your core value, probably the best way to know what mindset is needed is to think about what mindset currently exists. So right now, think about what are the characteristics presently in place that cause or contribute to the inequities that we see. So some in the room that I had conversations with, there are people in our district that don't believe special ed students can achieve at high levels. They just don't. They don't believe it. They're not bad people, but when it comes down to it, they really want us to remove the data for special ed students, and you can see we're actually doing really well. So that means you don't expect special ed students to achieve at high levels. Right? So think about what mindset is in place right now, and that'll help you consider what actually is needed. So if we wanted to replace that, we would say all educators in our district would demonstrate a value for high expectations for all students, no matter their ability level. That's the mindset we need, we expect, we desire. And we're saying it in that way. When you come here to our district, here's what you should know. We expect every educator, every adult person to have high expectations for all students, no matter their ability. Mindset needed. Then what are the skill sets? Again, think about it in the reverse. What right now are people doing that contribute to the inequity? When you identify that, you can now identify, well, what should they be doing? What do we desire them to do instead of that? Think about it as replacement behavior. And then finally, what's the tools, the systems, the frameworks, the interventions, all the stuff we have right now that are impacting that root cause? You might be like, what? I thought tool sets are supposed to get rid of them. Well, how are folks using them? Is there a system right now? So the other day we were up north sharing with districts on this topic, and one administrator was saying, well, right now we have a resource for special education students with behavior issues. We have an area for them to go when they need a break. Right? We all have those, like the calming areas. You can go here for just to reset, get regulated, go back to class. That's a system that's an evidence-based practice. They have a knowledgeable person in there staffing it, everything. They've checked the boxes. But right now what is happening is kids are going in there and they stay all day. It's not the 15-minute reset, although that's what's in their IEP as something that can help them. When you need it, go to the break room, 15 minutes. That's what's written. That's not what is happening. They're there all day. Well, why? What's the system? Like, that's a good thing. We're not going to get rid of the room. No, don't get rid of the room. But how are people using it? How is that system impacting the inequity? It is, you know how? Here are a couple reasons. In this situation, teachers had autonomy for sending kids to the room without any regulation. Renee, go take a break. Not because you said you needed it, Renee, but because I cannot take you anymore. That is why, please go take a break. So no guardrails, non-negotiables for when students should be accessing that room. There is no system in place from the person in there to have the authority to say, you need to go back. This was not a person that could just send a student back without any discussion from others. So I know he's supposed to only be in here for 15 minutes, but they didn't say he could leave, so he's in here. I heard they have couches and everything in there. Like, I'm not leaving this space because I don't want to be in this classroom anyway. It's not even I'm bored or I don't get it. The curriculum is not matching. Right? So anyway, there are tools, systems that are contributing to the inequities. Special ed students not getting exposure to the gen ed classroom because they're in this calming room all day long. The system is great, but there's something about the system that's fractured. So what systems are needed? In that case, guardrails for how the system is used. All right, so you're going to have to think critically about all the great things that you have and how they may be misused. So mindsets, values, skill sets, behaviors, tool sets, the systems, the frameworks, the interventions. So let me give you this example and then I'll let you have at it. So let's say I just gave you an academic and a behavior issue. So let's say academic-wise, I want to grow achievement for all students. What's the mindset required? I said, well, I need every adult to know that problem solving around student academic performance is part of their responsibility. That's the value I want people to have. That if special ed students are not performing, the special ed team needs to get on it. No, it's part of my responsibility. I'm gen ed, I'm a third grade classroom teacher, but it's still part of my responsibility. Again, that we say, oh yeah, everybody believes that. Do they? Show me what you do. When a special ed student is not performing, who do they call? Who leads the problem solving? From a behavior perspective, what's the mindset needed? Behavioral expectations need to be taught to fluency. We expect academics to be taught to fluency. Why not behavior? Let's treat behavior, the teaching of behavior, just like we do academics. Everyone needs to have that mindset. Not that Renee is choosing to act this way because she has no good home training. Now, people won't say that, but that's what they believe. That is what they believe in many cases, that there's a disconnect between what we expect from school and what you are allowed to do at home. That's how we put it a little more gently. But what we're really saying is your family environment is causing this, but it's not my fault. I don't have to do anything different. We need to course correct what's happening at home. What if I thought, there might be some things that are different at home, but I need to teach you school behavior to fluency. That would probably shift some of the things I do. Mindset needed. So you give me skill set. What would be a skill set that you would imagine would be needed if a person, a teacher, believed that problem solving was part of their responsibility? What would they need to be able to do? If you want them to problem solve around academics, what do they have to do? What skill do they need? Yep. Do they know how to even gather baseline data? What types of assessments they'll need to use that can tell them about those specific skills they're looking for? Yep. What else? Do they know a problem-solving process? You'd be like, I see the data, now what? Right? What is their skill around being able to even have conversations about data? What else? Jump to behavior then. If you want somebody to have a skill that demonstrates their value of teaching behavior to fluency, what would they need? What skills? What would they need to know about behavior? Are they modeling the expectations? Are they clearly defining the expectations to be able to model them? Reteaching. Being consistent. You guys are getting it. So here's some of the things I put. Do your teachers know how to look beyond surface level data to identify trends? Do they understand sub-skills that generalize to larger academic skills? Can they identify targeted interventions and assessment strategies for each sub-skill? So here's a problem-solving piece we talked about. Here's all the parts about collecting data. They need those skills. For behavior, what are the characteristics of the behavior? A lot of people do not have the vocabulary to talk about measurable characteristics of behavior. They just say, she's doing it a lot. She's running out of this room all the time. Okay, now, so some of you don't know I'm a school psychologist by training. You know, I'm the person who gives you all the forms to fill out. But then I'm still going to ask you questions. Tell me what it looks like. I'm asking you about the topography of the behavior so I can help you pinpoint what is it that you want to change. Everything. You want to change everything. Okay, is it the frequency of Renee's behavior? Is the intensity of it? It doesn't happen every day, but when it happens, whoo God, right? So what is it? That's what we mean by measurable characteristics of behavior. Do I understand the function, not just the phrase, as everybody can regurgitate the phrase function of behavior. But what does that actually mean when I look at this student's particular behavior? How do I figure out what might be the reason why it continues to happen? And how do I know ways to just check? Is this a skill gap or is it a performance gap? Does the student show this skill in other places, but just not here? Or everyone would say we never see this ability. How would we figure that out? Those are some skills that might be needed. Okay, so let's think about then tools. If they're for academics, let's say we never even considered this tool set piece and we were like, everybody needs to know how to problem solve. We would have grade level data teams, we'd have academic interventionists, we'd have a MTSS team that's highly sophisticated in problem solving. You see, we have the things in place that will contribute to being able to problem solve around what to do to grow academics. We have the things. But do we have these things without making sure people have these skills? For behavior, we have the behavior lessons, we have the SEL programs, we have the behavior coach that I'm calling every time Renee's acting up. We have the things, But you say you want everyone to be able to think about behavior and teach it to fluency. But here's what you tell me I have access to. And you don't make sure I can do these things. But without these things, I'm relying on the behavior coach to do the interventions and to tell me what school behavior lessons to use, which means I'm really relying on someone else to think about that fluency process. So thinking about skill set, I'm telling you, is the missing link. You know how Oprah says, what I know for sure. What I know for sure is skill sets are huge gaps that we don't consider. So I'm going to ask you to consider them now as you do your final thinking task. Here is what I have observed other team members do to make the task a little easier. It's not an easy task, but to work out of order, kind of. First, write down that area of focus you want to drill down to, whatever it is. Figure that out, and then say, what do people currently believe, and what would we rather them believe? What do we desire them to believe? That's your mindset. So step 1, step 2. Then think about, for this issue, what do we already have in place? Go to the tools. You'll be able to list a whole lot of tools. Then think about the question that's back here. What behaviors are needed that they're not doing? With all those tools that you have in place, what are people not doing with those tools? When you know what they're missing related to those tools, you'll be able to identify a little better what skill sets they might be missing. So they have a behavior coach, they're just going straight to the behavior coach. That might mean they don't know how to identify exactly what behavior they need to address. So do they have the skill set of being able to define measurable characteristics of behavior? I got to the skill set part. So that's your task. You're going to have to work together to really think through this. I'm telling you, it's not an easy task, but start here, go to mindset, hop over to tool set, and then finally end with skill set. Some of you might have much success just going linearly, more power to you, but if you're struggling, try that order. And on your guided note sheet, you'll see these 3 questions at the end. What are your strengths related to mindset, skill set, tool set on that area of focus you chose? What's standing out is that's something we have, we don't necessarily need to build. Do you notice anything in that way? What mindset, skill sets, and or tool sets are missing? You probably will have missing pieces in all 3 levels. And so now what? What might you do? What are some actionable things you can do to address those missing areas, those missing sets? Questions? If you need a stretch break, please take one. I can feel you fading on me a little bit. It's 2:05. Let's take 15 minutes. I promise this is your last task. Thanks. Before I forget, on your chart, the guided notes for the day, the bottom, the very last page, it says click here for examples. So if you click there, you're going to see like the why things that we came up with. The example whys, and then also the skill set, mindset, tool set we just went through. So if you need those as you're sharing back in your spaces, that's where you can find them, the end of that document. All right, so let's quickly talk through what you noticed during that task. What were some of your takeaways? Remember I asked what strengths, what's missing, and then what are you going to do about it? I'm telling you, your sharing helps somebody else because you're all in here thinking very similar things. I know because I hear you as I'm walking around. Two share outs. Or I can take Gail's approach and call on you, but I really don't want to be that person.
My share out doesn't count since I'm not writing a plan, but
It can count, Angie.
going through the process, you may have the same outcome, and we analyze all the information and look at your steps and the things that you're doing, you may end up with a very different tactic to get to that outcome just based on what you figure out.
Yeah, you all. Angie summarized the real takeaway. That's why we foreshadowed that this morning, and I think I explicitly said I'm not asking you to like scrap whatever action plan you have now. Just want it to be more intentional, and you might find through the intentionality you take a different path. You're still aiming for the same goal, but the course you take might need to be different based on what people's skill sets are, how you want to shift what you identify as your values, the actionable things you can actually influence. Today was about giving you multiple paths. What else?
I think the people that are making the document, like when we were making it, our skill set, that were like what became the mindset. Like kind of went together. Like our mindset was like, okay, they need to do this, but it's a mindset that it was what we are. Like we used our skill set to make what our mindset is.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That can happen. Listen, the way you get to each of those pieces is irrelevant, right? Whatever is going to lead you to that next way of thinking or next conversation, yeah.
But I don't know if that's a good thing though, because it was our mindset, not their mindset.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the difference. Like I want them to think this way, but they don't think that way. So how are we getting the, and what skills can we teach? And what skills can we teach? You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna maybe be a barrier on ours.
Yeah.
That way, we want to. So.
Yeah. Remember all about your lenses, the analogy we started the day with. And remember what I said, because this happens in like I can't even, it would be hard for me to think about a situation where it didn't happen, because it happens as much, but there are always different ways of thinking based on the role that you serve. I mean, so I'm, like many of you, am charged with facilitating a meeting with people who want different things based on their perspective. So where you get there, if you think, yeah, but that's my mindset, that's not their mindset, don't focus on the mindset initially, focus on what's the goal. Because you likely have similar goals that, again, as I said earlier, are expressed differently. And so once you can just clear the path to talk about what do I want that's similar to what you want, you can get to the conversation. The other thing I would say is, although many of you are in the role of coordinating, fixing it, you're charged with doing the stuff, take a step back and invite others who you're going to be expecting to do the stuff and take them through some of these activities. Like, I'm telling you, the 5 whys is amazing. And it really clarifies what you may be making an assumption about, right, given your perspective. So exposing others to some of the protocols we've done today will help clarify for you really what the nature of the skill set and or mindset gaps are. Yeah. What else? Yep.
I think like
Yeah.
We get it from people that are boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And making sure that we're able to address more than just the tools.
Yeah. People make time for the things they value. And I'm not saying that we have an abundance of time. Because we value, we're taking the day off to just do this. I'm not saying we can do that a lot, but I have seen, I have been in districts that said, this is what we value. So you know that PD day, that day, everybody is talking about this thing. Right? And yeah, that's just a one thing. And we were talking about when you do the PD, and then what? Because remember, skill set. The PD is just the exposure. But what's the next step in terms of making sure people are actually developing skill sets around whatever you taught in the PD? Yeah, you got to work through the barriers. That's the task. What do we have control over? What actions can we take? And there's no magic wand. Time is always going to be something you have to fight against. But again, if it's the value, I have almost always found that people are able to figure out something for stuff that's a high priority. What else? Aha moments from this activity? Maybe you're all thought out. Okay, well, listen, I'm proud of you for the conversations because I heard them as I was walking around, and thank you for allowing me to jump in and share some thoughts when I stopped at your table. As we've already summarized, I'm not going to belabor our afternoon, but my desire today was that you walk away from our conversations digging deeper, focusing on things that lie under the surface of the things that you started with today. It might mean you need to reduce some of your areas of focus. Might mean you need to isolate and not work on all of them. You might need to prioritize. Whatever you do, make sure that your actions are focused on narrowing and eliminating gaps that are clearly aligned to values that you have, because those values, if you can make sure everyone is on one accord with that, they drive what you do. They are the guardrails. Be clear about what the expectations are so that people can formulate those guardrails. And it's not don't focus on the outcomes, but prioritize the processes and the systems over the outcomes, because if you can do that consistently, the outcomes will come. And then always, always think about the skill sets that are missing. People will show you that they don't have the skill set. How does it, if you don't have a skill for something, what's your behavior like? What do you show? What emotion, for example? What kind of behavior? I'm nervous, I withdraw, I'm anxious, I'm a wreck. Because in educators, we want to do well. If I don't have the skill set, I am anxious. I show you that. That is the indicator that I'm missing some skill sets. And you might not know what they are, but tap into that to know that that's what it is. If I'm frustrated, that's probably a sign that I don't know all the tools, because frustration indicates I feel like you're asking me to do something I don't have the resources to do. And we all know we have resources, so that person might not be clear on their options. What's available? If you're noticing a lot of frustration, it's likely due to just being clear on what I have access to, who can help, what are the tools. If it's, you find some people are on the same page and trying to do it and some are not, there's just like this general, we're moving a little bit, but it's real slow. What are the incentives? Not give you $1 or give Starbucks gift card, but why should people do this? We were chatting, why should I say we should all adopt this curriculum? Why would I say that as a teacher? How does it help me? In what ways is it going to support the students that I'm working with? That's what I mean by incentive. What's the value in what you're asking me to do? Make that crystal clear so that absolutely I'm moving in the direction with you. And as long as I have the skill set, I'm not going to tiptoe through it. I'm all in. Last thing I'd say is clarity on the vision, on the mindset, the expectations is task number one, and it's going to require folks that sit in the fancy buildings in whatever your space is, that have the fancy offices. Go back to Atomic Habits. We have plan after plan after plan every year, but we never change or consider our identity. Who are we? What do we value? How do we show that? How do we measure it? That's a hard conversation. When you can get that right, other things fall into place. Not that it doesn't take work, but that is your compass. So everything we think about goes back to that. Every decision we make goes back to that. Again, think about, if anything you think about, okay, Renee says move every 30 minutes. Every decision I make where like if I'm out of town, where I choose to stay, all revolves around my non-negotiables. So whatever it is in your district, it needs to be that powerful, and everybody needs to be that clear about it. That this is why we do all the things that we do, this core value or these sets of core values. So I'm charging you all to find ways where you can introduce the need for that to folks that are in leadership positions that are going to have to help that conversation. Because you can continue to do all this work, and if the mindset isn't there, we'll be having these conversations for times to come. All right, so wrapping up, I want you to take 2 minutes at your table, and this time we are going table by table, so I'm telling you now, we're going table by table. I need you to say, what's your next steps? Ignore all this right here, because this is too much. Sometimes I do too much. Here's what I want you to talk about at your table. What's our best next steps? Based on what we learned here, is there a protocol? Is there a conversation that we think we can have? We can't do all the things we talked about a lot today. But what's one of the thinking tasks that we did today that you feel like you can lean into and take as a next step action? So 2 minutes to talk about that, and then we're going table by table. All right, let's share out. So here's my one ask. As you share out, just project so that everyone in the room can hear what you are sharing. I'm going to start us off with Monroe County. Thank you.
All right. So we really appreciated the success gap indicator rubric and using that, kind of taking the domains of that, creating a conceptual framework and applying those to those specific areas of needs and the things that and how we address each of those with our domains, mindsets, tool sets, and the skills that we need to address those and move forward.
Love it. That is a great actionable to do. Get you a team together. Everybody do it on your own first. Come together, build consensus on the just right rating, and then go from there. Love it. Thank you. All right, Kokomo, sorry listen, Kokomo has taught me a lesson. Renee, always without fail have hard copies of what you are sharing. I apologize.
No, it's not your fault.
What's next for you, Kokomo? To actually access the thing is next. What else after that?
Our district has for 3 years now worked on a balanced and comprehensive assessment system.
Okay.
We're in a good place with data.
Good.
So, and data really, you know, people say data don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
With that saying, and it's true, and we want to make sure that to our teachers and our principals, we can really tell the story through the data.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to try to focus on.
Okay. Perfect. Love it. Love it. And thinking about skill sets around that data. You've invested so much on the system. Are we sure people have the skill? Okay, Evansville.
So we're gonna kind of take some of the tools from this and use it in the work that we've already kind of set up. Right now, we're meeting with each of our schools individually to look at like master scheduling and inclusive practices. When we look at master scheduling, making sure that we're setting it up correctly, but using some of these questions like the 5 whys and stuff to push their thinking and challenge them as they're making them.
Great plan. Love it. I love you incorporating it into, look, we're not changing stuff we're already doing. That's quality. Just add to it. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, our lone KIP person who's problem solved a lot by herself today.
Yeah, I'm going to take the mindset, skill set chart back to the directors, like the building level directors.
Okay.
Talking about special education, and then use that as like a milestone checkpoint, like where are we to just really drive clarity with those things? Because
Okay.
You said something about we could do the action, but if it's missing the rigor, then it's not like we're doing the wrong thing.
It's
not that
just
we're
not intense
doing it,
enough,
We're just not
yeah.
doing it intensely enough, so
Mhm.
that would be something that would help us drive clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. Great plan. I love it. Start there because leaders have to go first. Leaders have to be clear so that you know what's passed on. And I don't even know what school am I saying?
We're from Southwestern.
Southwestern. Okay.
Yes, our next step is to request meetings with our building level administrators to share all of these resources because they are in different spots in regards to our data from each building, and so hopefully this will help us streamline. Yes, a little more effective.
Ditto what we said, right? That's a great place to start. I love it. Get everybody on the same page. Okay, we had 2 schools here, but they work together as a unit. What you can share independently what you're going to do. Mm-hmm.
Sure. For our setting, the department that I helped oversee has already done a thorough analysis of what the need is.
Okay.
We've created an action plan to put it in the hands of those with agency to say, this is, what the need is. I really fell in love with the identity process outcome gaps form and want to now do that with them so that they can have some ownership in the process because we're doing all the work. And,
That's how it goes,
and
yeah.
we're not getting to the level of support that's really needed to get us moving.
Yeah.
And I think this will be powerful to helping them make that connection.
Yeah, I agree with you. Good next step. Okay.
I feel like we already have a lot of this area of focus, mindset, skill set, tool set, but we've never put it down as a looking at a
vision.
chart. So I'd like to put it down so everybody can see, it's like a roadmap, where we're at, where we're going, what we've got, and, let's keep moving forward. It just kind of illustrate it a little bit better than just words here and there.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
That clarity is important. So remember I was saying, how do people show that they don't have a skill, they're anxious? If you notice false starts, like we start and then we just stop and then we start again, that's an indicator the plan is not laid out clearly, right? So you all can think about that. I mean, you can think about that specifically if you feel like you have those pieces in place. Maybe it's just the connecting of the dots that can really push you along. Great. All right, this is also a hodgepodge team. So we might have 3 share outs here.
We talked about some of the areas that we really liked were the 5 why.
Okay,
Because it
good.
can dig deep, it goes more than just that superficial, it goes to deeper levels.
Yep.
Maybe even finding out different stakeholders that need to be present and maybe they haven't been, just inadvertently, as well as the mindset skill set toolkit, because it can take not only areas of focus, but maybe areas of concern, find out maybe where the deficits are, and then attempt to bring that all together.
Love it. You all came up with that together. Okay. So I am going to say specifically, I don't know your name though.
Oh, Cody.
Cody and I were talking earlier, and Cody is helping to coordinate one of their school improvement grants in his area. And one of the things I think he did brilliantly is when we're doing the 5 whys, right? He's asking us whys, but then in the countermeasures, he's just making sure that those are actually pieces of the grant. And if they weren't, how do you add it? I mean, he spoke to it a little bit when he was talking about time and all that, but like that's another thing you can do. Make connections to things you already have, and where does this show up in grants that we already have moving along? Because if you know those to be actionable things you can do and you have resources to carry them out, do it. Great. Okay, what do we have? We're at Duggar Union. Okay, what do you have?
So we just incorporated this year teams and department meetings.
Oh,
So
okay.
a lot of these templates that you shared overall, we want to incorporate all of those.
Okay.
But our first step is to revisit our curriculum maps
Mm-hmm.
and revisit those newer teachers, make sure everybody has all of those in hand.
Yeah, have access.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have these great things. Do people have them to use? What if the reason why they're not using it is they just don't have access and we don't know that? It could be simple things. Simple things can make a huge difference. You don't have to recreate the wheel. They just need access. And they need to be taught how to use them. Like, that could be magic that was just waiting for you to uncover. Great. And the why helped us get there. Yeah, good. Okay, and then Attica.
We're going to use the visual that has the mindset, skill set, tool set, and just kind of start with, is everybody on the same page with our vision of the fact that all learners should make equal progress. And from there, maybe if we all believe that, then do like the 5 whys. Why are we not getting there, and what do we need as we kind of work our way around that? Like a roadmap, like she said back here, I think it's a great tool to use.
Yep. Well, hand clap for yourselves. A lot of people, so I ask sometimes, is this at all what you expected today? Maybe or maybe not. I don't know. Put it on your evaluation. It'll be fine. We really do want that feedback. But in honesty, I kind of hope it wasn't what you were expecting, because I wanted you to be thinking about the work that you need to do in ways that maybe you haven't thought about before. That requires us to have new and difficult and courageous conversations. So listen, I just applaud you for engaging with me. We are doing this as a 3-part series. So our second session is virtual, and we're going to do that in March. And you'll be able to sign up for either a morning time or an afternoon time. And what you should be prepared to do in March is to be able to report out on the specific action that you have decided to work on, the systems that you are planning for or have put in place to support that, and then how you're measuring that outcome. Basically, an iteration of how you started, what's on your chart paper, but now with more depth. All right? If you need a reference, what I expect in March is for you to be able to report out exactly what you have on your chart paper with more depth. How does that change for you? And then our last session is in April, late April sometimes. We'll talk about that later. Final thing I need you to do before you put away your devices is this IEP. So, IEP. It's not an IEP at all. It's not an IEP at all, okay? It's not. It is an evaluation, though. And we really want and appreciate your feedback. So, I know some of you are having Wi-Fi issues, but if you can just type this into your device, or if you promise not to forget, take a picture of it when you're able to get to Wi-Fi. We appreciate that as well. All right, everybody. So thank you again. It's been my honor to be with you today. I had fun. I hope you learned some new things and enjoyed yourself. And reach out to the IPTA crew and or me. However we can help you, we will absolutely do that. So have a good night, safe travels, and I'll see you virtually in March. Thanks, everybody.